the coaches poll coming out yesterday. And the coaches poll always interests me more.
Okay.
Because you would assume that the coaches poll would be a little bit more evened out when it comes to how some coaches feel about either the teams they're going up against or the credit level that they want to give, like other programs and such.
Oh, that's not accurate.
You don't think so?
No, not at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what you would assume.
Well,
because you would assume that coaches would be like, oh, will we know how good other teams are going to be?
So here's the thing, though. They really don't. Unless they play that team,
Yes.
They have no idea.
And see, that's what I'm saying, is that when we see an entire list of, 22-odd teams that all receive votes after the 25, there's no way that, some of those teams are top 25 teams.
No, you just look at it and you go, okay, this is – well, and we saw it with – we can get into this now because I was mad about it.
Rico, you're on the clock already.
We saw the SEC Ponzi scheme machine in full force again yesterday.
Yeah, that was crazy. Oklahoma being basically 27th was nuts.
With 9 teams being ranked. You mentioned Oklahoma at just a couple spots out.
And Missouri right behind them.
Oklahoma, Missouri. But here's the thing. Florida's not going to be ranked at the end of the year.
Yeah. And so that's always my toughest argument to give is, okay, so are we ranking it in the preseason ranking, are you setting it as if all these teams perform their best, this is the highest that we believe that they would finish, right, at the end of the season? Or is it a top 25 ranking of
I think you're trying to predict the finish of the regular season.
Yeah, that's what I've always assumed a preseason poll is. It's not necessarily where the teams are stacked as of right now. It's how you believe these teams will finish.
Yeah.
And there's just no way some of these teams are going to end up where they are.
Florida's absolutely not going to be ranked. I would be shocked if Tennessee is ranked. I don't know if Texas A&M is going to be ranked. I know there's a lot of hype around Texas A&M. I'll believe it when I see it. That's a toxic job and almost always has been. They always find a way to lose 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Miss me with South Carolina too. I'm not buying. That
was a little high.
I don't at 13.
Yeah, it was a little high for 13.
20, 22 maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Just on Lenore Sellers is going to get us to 9-3. Okay, whatever. Ole Miss is missing a ton of stuff from last year. They had to go transfer portal fishing again, which Lane Kiffin's very good at. But how many times have we seen when you have to replace a ton of stuff through the transfer portal, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State was 13-0 2 years ago. They were 2-10 last year, and they brought in a great portal class. It just didn't work.
Yep.
Some of this stuff just doesn't work. And I don't know. You can't convince me that Minnesota or USC.
Yeah, that one was interesting to me. And I know, again, just receiving votes, but that's again.
Tell me Florida and Tennessee are going to finish higher ranked than USC.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yep. And
I'm not even high on USC.
You even look in that list too. I was surprised Arizona State was just on the fringe of a top 10. I thought that they were more of a middle teens, but I think there is that disparity between some of those top 10 programs to where everything else kind of falls out. Miami being number 10 was interesting to me. My biggest gripe
Miami's
outside of
not the 10th best team in the country. They're not.
My biggest gripe outside of
LSU's not going to finish 9 either.
Yeah, outside of some of the top teams that you had mentioned, I don't know why, but I don't understand why Michigan is getting as much preseason love as they can. They won't be able to move the football. They will not be able to do anything offensively. I understand they will have a really, really competitive defense.
I certainly think early in the season, until Bryce Underwood figures out his stuff, I do think they're going to have a really bad offense early.
Yes.
I think they're going to have a really bad offense early. And, their head coach is going to be gone for 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
3 pretty important games. I don't know what – it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we're penciling them as top 15. We have no idea what Michigan's going to be.
Yeah.
They might be pretty good by the end of the year, but I'm not putting them a top 15 team in the country. This is borderline college football playoff.
Yep. Yeah.
You think they're going to make college football playoff?
I don't think so.
And honestly, I think Illinois is a little high also.
Yeah, 12. 12
seems a little high. I'm picking nits here, but 15, 16. That's probably where I would have them. But it basically, but this is the problem I have, right? Is we start with a preseason poll.
Mm-hmm.
The AP preseason poll is probably going to be pretty similar to this. You're probably going to have 8 or 9 SEC teams in the preseason poll as well. And then this is where the Ponzi scheme starts. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy all damn year.
Yep.
Look how hard our schedule is. Tennessee could end up being 4-8. I don't think they will, but they could end up being 4-8. But in the beginning of the season, the first couple teams that beat them will be like, oh, we beat a ranked Tennessee team. That team sucks.
Yeah.
Just because they were preseason ranked doesn't mean anything. Florida very easily could go 6-6 this year. Mm-hmm. Their schedule is brutal. You're going to go into the season and be like, oh, we got top 20 Florida, beat them at the Swamp. Who gives a damn? They're a mediocre team. Mm-hmm. South Carolina's going to be like South Carolina. If heaven forbid Lenore Sellers get banged up or something, let's say he's still playing, but he's like pulls a hammy or something.
They're a 4-1 team.
That's a team like you'd be like, oh, we beat a top 15 South Carolina.
Yep.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's the problem. Like this is why I care, because this is where it starts. It starts with, hey, look how many ranked teams we have. Oh, look how hard our schedule is. Mm-hmm. It's not. You just made it up.
Well, and we even saw it last year when it came to, it was the college football playoff poll and the AP poll and also the Big 12 preseason poll. When Arizona State started the season dead last in their own conference and you had to work your way up, their season gained no credibility until the third quarter against Texas because they pretty much had to fight their entire way to get to where they were. They were essentially one of the last teams to get in because they won their conference to get in.
Only reason they made it in.
And they were actually probably more deserving of a spot and an argument in the college football playoff with the way that their season had transgressed than where they had started. And because they started so far back, there was no chance of them catching up to the top 10.
Well, and let's say they had lost the Big 12 championship or whatever, right? Yeah. They still would have been more deserving than 3-loss Alabama and 3-loss Ole Miss and all these other teams that were propped up because like, oh, it's the SEC. Look how hard their schedule was. Yep. And it's like, you only think it's a hard schedule because you rank them all to start.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, when your pole position starts higher, it's easier to keep yourself up there, despite whatever losses or whatever you have.
And then you can make the arguments of, oh, well, these teams would have been finishing in the top 25, but look how hard their schedule was. They had to play 8 other ranked SEC teams, and you go in and their season got away from them a little bit. We know that happens. It starts to snowball. It's like, no, they were just bad to start.
Yeah.
They didn't deserve to be ranked to start. And I don't know which teams it's going to be. I think it's probably Florida and Tennessee if I had to guess. And I low-key think South Carolina. Like, this just doesn't feel like a team that's going to win 10 games. I don't know. Like, I know people love Lenore Sellers. I think he's really good. I think he's got a better chance of going number 1 overall than he does leading South Carolina to the playoff. Like, that's just how I feel about South Carolina. I know they had a nice transfer portal poll. I don't think they have the depth of talent on that team to be competitive at the level people are talking about.
Yeah.
Just my guess. But the point is there's going to be 3 or 4 of these teams from the SEC that aren't any good. And we're going to look at them. You should be looked at the same way as Minnesota and maybe UCLA. And depending on how Michigan State does this year, there's going to be a chunk of these teams. Like, you really think these teams are going to finish having a better year than Iowa?
No, I don't. And that's like Iowa not being receiving more votes than USC and some of the other, like Oklahoma especially. Iowa probably should have been on that they should have been 26th.
Yeah.
If they're not going to be in the 25, they probably should have been 26th.
Yeah.
And I want to argue for Nebraska, and I believe that Nebraska will end in the top 25.
I agree.
But
I understand
if you're looking at consistency, and I completely understand why as well.
But here's the thing. If they were in the SEC, they'd be like, oh, Dylan Raiola, let's put him at 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you really think, honestly, like I'm not trying to set you up here. Do you think South Carolina has a better roster right now than Nebraska?
No, I do not.
I don't either.
I think they have the best player out of both teams.
I think there's a decent chance that Dylan Raiola has a better year than Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, if the Dana Holgerson year 2 bump math comes out, then yes.
Like, that's not crazy.
That's not crazy, no.
Like, if you actually think about it, it's not crazy. But if you say that to some stranger, they'll be like, oh, Lenore Sellers.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
No, you're 100% right. It's a little Homer Network-ish, but it doesn't have to be. If you just look at
the actual facts.
Yeah.
5-star, second year, one of the best offensive minds in the country is his offensive coordinator now.
Yep.
We saw what it looked like at times at the end of the season with Dana Holgerson. Like, you're telling me you don't think it's possible that Dylan Raiola has a better year than Lenore Sellers?
I think it's more than possible.
I think it's likely.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not as high on Lenore Sellers as other people are. I get that he's really talented. I also don't think it's a very good roster in South Carolina. I think it's fine. But that is not the number 13 team in the country. I think South Carolina and Nebraska, like if you go like blind resume, no name on the jersey, no letter on the helmet. I think you would take more Nebraska guys than South Carolina.
Yeah, the top two, and I just Googled it. I was trying to remember his name, but they have that defensive end or outside linebacker.
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
South Carolina. That guy's an animal.
You're telling me Vincent Shavers doesn't look like he plays for he could play for anybody in the SEC?
I think once you get past okay, here are Mount Rushmore top 4 guys, here are their Mount Rushmore top 4 guys. I think the depth of Nebraska after that just exceeds a lot of some of the other teams.
You don't think that South Carolina would take Elijah Pritchett and Rocco Spindler
100%.
and Justin Evans and probably Henry Lutovsky
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, they would.
Today,
yeah, they would.
Absolutely.
They'd probably also take a Riley Van Poppel. They'd probably also like a Keona Davis. They'd probably also take, like you mentioned, Shavers.
Everybody wanted Williams and Maneri.
Yep.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the country. Shavers, McGahee. You don't think that a lot of those teams would take a Javen Wright?
You can't have Heinrich Harburg. We're keeping
everybody.
Heinrich Harburg would be a freaky athlete on any team.
Yep.
Literally every team in the country wanted Carter Nelson.
Yep.
So you're telling South Carolina couldn't even get in the conversation for Carter Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking to Georgia and Notre Dame.
And
Nebraska, right? So I don't understand how we sit here and go, okay. And I know the depth of Nebraska has. I'll be honest. I'm not as familiar with South Carolina's roster as I am with Nebraska's. With what I am familiar with, I'm taking Nebraska's roster over South Carolina. Maybe that's crazy. That's fine. My point is they cannot be the 13th best team in the country.
Right.
Not buying it.
So are you
TK says DR is better than Sellers, but Stewart is by far the next. That's fine.
Dylan Stewart, there we go.
Totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's who I was talking about earlier. Wasn't necessarily quarterback straight up.
But guess what? You don't win football games with 2 guys.
Yeah, that is true.
Famously impossible.
That is true.
Right? Give me Nebraska's roster. I will take that.
So would you have rather seen more Big Ten representatives, or would you have rather just seen if Nebraska got a top 25?
I'm fine with that. I don't think Nebraska deserved to be preseason ranked.
I'd agree with that.
I don't think they deserve that. I think they will be ranked at the end of the season for sure.
Mm-hmm. You hope if you go 10-2.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be, right? If I believe they're going to go 10-2, then we're talking about a top 10 to 15 team in the country, right? Probably closer to 10.
Which again, your argument too, and what we're saying is, if this is the preseason poll of expectations as to how the season would finish, some of these just mathematically aren't possible, right? Yeah. And I understand you don't want to run into all that. This is the coaches poll. They're probably just jotting down, a couple of teams and just submitting a ballot, whatever. It's not a big deal. But in that same sense too, it is
a big deal though, because this is how we define our expectations and our perception of who teams are.
And it's also how we define our expectations of certain coaches and programs, right?
Yes.
Nebraska notably dominated a top 25 team that ended up ranked at the end of the season in week 2.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I know Colorado wasn't exactly a world beater. They didn't,
No, but that was a good football team last year.
And they were a top 25 team. They were rated in the top 25 by all 3 polls by the end of the season.
And here's the other problem, right? Look at Illinois last year, right? At the time, that feels like a bad loss for Nebraska. It's like, oh, Illinois is off to a hot start, whatever. But if they're an SEC team, if they're South Carolina or whoever coming into this year, you go and you look at it and you go, ah, man, that's another top 25 game. Yep. That's a huge matchup. This is a great Big Ten opener. You're sitting there, you go, okay, this is crazy. Instead, you go, oh, man, they just lost to Illinois?
Right, yeah.
You don't think every SEC team is like, oh, man, we just lost to South Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
The big boys of the SEC don't feel that way about South Carolina. They just do this to prop up their own conference. And that's why it matters, because at the end of the year, we have to have some sort of framework, and it's the framework we start with, which is these nonsense preseason polls.
Yeah.
That's what we go off of, and it doesn't make any sense. So my only issue is I don't want more Big Ten teams ranked. I don't want Nebraska ranked. I'm saying there are probably 3, maybe 4 SEC teams that do not deserve to be in the top 25.
Well, preseason polls are obviously meant for clickbait fodder, right? That's why, I mean, it's giving us something to talk about too. But
the problem is if people actually use them.
If they started the polls in week 4, when most conferences begin all of their conference play, week 4 or 5, somewhere around there, we'd actually probably have a better general sense of which teams are should be in the top 25. And in that sense, I'd argue for this upcoming season, Nebraska would be a top 25 team.
I would agree. But the problem that's a really good point, because you would at least have an idea of what teams are.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm sure that
because no one's going to watch Texas Ohio State, the number 1 versus number 2 team, opening weekend. No one's going to watch that game and be like, one of these teams isn't a top 25 team.
Yeah.
No one's going to watch that game if it didn't have the numbers on it and be like, nah, neither of these teams have a chance. No way.
I don't know if they just think that we aren't smart enough to have the context for who's good and who's not.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's the
case.
case.
The preseason polls are just completely outdated.
Yeah,
right?
They are. But here's the thing. There is so much stock put into these, and I don't just mean by fans and media and people like us. I mean, people actually use these preseason polls as their starting point for the season.
Well, notably, the old BCS model used to really rely on some of these type of models. So,
like, it was a third or whatever of the point system. And you can't tell me that these people on the selection committee aren't paying attention to this. And then when they go back and they look at teams, they go, okay, this was a ranked matchup at the beginning of the season, but we have no idea. That team could suck.
Yep.
Like, that's the problem. And
so if Oregon goes 9-3 this season, they're not number 7, right?
No.
But if Alabama finished 9-3, would they be a top 10? Would they be number 8?
Probably not, but they're
they would have. I mean, they were just outside of a top 12 team last year.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably 10 to 12,
right? So it's not too far. But you could say if Oregon was 9-3, they're probably closer to what?
15.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. And I get the losses matter, but it's not like Alabama had great losses last year. Like, Alabama had no business making a college football playoff argument last year.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Like. And the only reason they had one was because of where they started the season. Now, Alabama made sense last year to start the season higher, but also we're just going to pretend like losing Nick Saban wasn't going to matter.
Yeah.
Like I think they started last year like 3rd or 4th in the country.
I think that sounds about right.
I'd have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I can get it right here.
But you're telling me that losing Nick Saban was just not going to be a problem. That
all right,
wasn't even
last year's opening preseason college football coaches poll. Georgia 1, and then through the ranks here: Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama 5.
Alabama 5. Okay.
Ole Miss 6. Oh, 5 and 6. Notably, those two teams must have made the playoff, right?
Oh wait, nope, no, they didn't.
Notre Dame 7, Michigan 8. Michigan, notably number 8. I mean, they must have made the playoff then, correct?
Well, and Michigan didn't lose everyone off of that
22
roster.
players of the NFL, yeah.
And your head coach.
Yeah.
And your defensive coordinator. Like, that wasn't going to matter.
Oh, and don't forget Florida State, number 10. They must have had a tremendous season, correct? I mean, they obviously got to double-digit wins at minimum.
Yeah, well, and don't forget. Well, they did get to double digits, but it was losses.
Number 10, that was for the 10 losses they had that year,
and don't forget, so this is a team that the College Football Playoff Committee felt so strongly Jordan Travis was important to, that despite being undefeated and ACC champions, left them out of the college football playoff. But then you lose Jordan Travis to the NFL the next year, and somehow they're still going to be top 10 team in the country?
Yep.
Like, the math isn't mathing for me here.
And again, last year was goofy, but Missouri was 11, LSU 12, Utah 13, Clemson 14, Tennessee 15, Oklahoma 16. I mean, we can poke holes in every single argument. And again, it's a preseason poll. A lot of things changed. Utah had injuries. LSU went through different gauntlets, but they also got blown out at different times in the season last year. Clemson was a playoff team barely. Tennessee made the playoff. Oklahoma fell off a ladder until they beat Alabama near the end of the year. And then you just continue to go down the list with some of these other fringe teams. USC was 23. Kansas was 24, who started, 0 for 4, 0 for 5? And then Iowa was 25. I almost feel like 25 should just be the Iowa spot every year. They should just always just put Iowa.
It's the top 24 plus Iowa.
Yeah, right? Because
Iowa's always going to be like, unless they have one of their weird years where they pop off for double-digit wins, they're always going to be between 18 and 25.
And notably, Nebraska received 2 votes in that coaches poll for the preseason.
Yeah. And Nebraska did not finish.
No.
Although they probably are 2 votes, put you 35th?
Yeah, it's probably closer to 40th. I know. So with 19 votes, they were at 39th for this year.
Okay, so yeah, if you're 40th, 45th, you're actually probably not that far off from where they ended up.
I mean, they were 7-6, but trending in the right direction. They won 2 of their last 3 games. So it depends on how you feel about the team. But yeah.
Hot Danger brings up Creighton basketball annually benefits from this same kind of preseason expectation setting. I bet they'll be in the preseason top 25 despite losing the 4-time Big East Player of the Year, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. But I understand his point. Yeah. I will say
it's a good argument, though, because last year Creighton was a top 16 team.
Yeah.
And, man, did they benefit for that for a little bit of a run. But when they went unranked, everyone just wrote them off.
Yeah.
And then when they couldn't get back in the rankings, that was actually when they were playing their best.
Really? Yeah, it was.
I mean, truthfully.
And I definitely understand with the losing Ryan Kalkbrenner. And I actually think from the way too early preseason polls I've seen, Creighton really is on that fringe of being ranked, unranked, which feels appropriate.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell me, hey, they're unranked, they lost Stephen Ashworth, which is really important. They lose Ryan Kalkbrenner, really important. They didn't end up bringing Pop Isaac back, which is a big reason they were preseason ranked last year. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's fair. Like, I'm not going to sit here and argue with it. Same thing. I'm not sitting here and argue with you that Nebraska should be preseason ranked.
Right.
I understand why they're not, but the reasons that they aren't are the same reasons that a lot of these other teams shouldn't be either. Cody says prime example was 2016 beating a highly ranked Oregon team, and then Oregon ends up going like 4-8 this year.
Great example.
That was a terrific example.
That's Nebraska's marquee victory of that season.
It's Nebraska's marquee victory
of the decade, maybe.
Until last year against Colorado.
Yes.
It was like one of their best victories in about 10 years. And guess what? Nobody remembers outside of Nebraska that Oregon was bad that year. But guess what? We all know that wasn't a good win.
Yep.
It looked good.
And that's the thing. You get a marquee victory like that, and we did it this past season as well. You watch that team that you felt was a great victory for yours.
Because you want it to hold up.
Exactly. And it's that old adage of when you are rooting for your team, the minute that you beat a good team, you pray that team stays as good as they are.
Well, and the vice versa, too. 2 years ago, right? Colorado starts off super hot.
Yep.
Beats Nebraska in Boulder. And you're like, that's okay. Colorado's a good team, whatever. And then they only win one more game the rest of the year.
Yep.
And you sit there and go like, that's probably one we needed to get.
Is that emblematic of our team then? Because we got blown out by that team?
Right?
Yeah.
And they obviously got a huge bump from their early season wins there. And they weren't preseason ranked, but it's the same point where that team looked like, I think they got in the top 15 at one point after the Nebraska win.
I think they were 21 or 22 when they played Nebraska.
But after that win, I think they got into the top 15, and then they only won, I think, one more game the rest of the season.
I know we can look it up. I can look at the coaches poll version. I could definitely pull up the others. But so that would have been the third week of the season. They would have been ranked.
Yeah.
So Colorado was 21 after the Nebraska victory, and then they would have beaten, I think, Colorado State the next week. So we'll see where they went after that. They were number 19, peaked at 19.
Okay, 19.
Yep. But still, I mean, you're a top 20 team.
Or 4-8.
Yeah, that finished 4-8. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the point is, like, these preseason polls, the early season polls, affect how we perceive these teams, and we have
it has a lingering effect.
Idea what we're talking about.
It has a 100% lingering effect into the college football playoff conversation when it's 13 weeks after we get done with the first whistle of fall camp.
They're not even the same. I mean, they're a lot of the times they're not even the same teams for reasons outside their control. But a lot of times, especially now with transfer portal and how much these rosters turn over from year to year, we just have no idea.
Yep.
Like, wait until after the non-conference is over. For the SEC, you have to wait until mid-November when they play their FCS team, and then they can be ranked.
Yeah,
that's my argument.
Jeez, I forgot Michigan was number 8. That's just. Did you say after they played their FCS team?
Yeah.
So SEC is going to get theirs week 12?
Yeah, SEC doesn't get to be ranked until week 12. That's the new rule.
That's awesome. I'm not opposed. I still think, like, if you get rid of the preseason polls, part of these preseason polls are to kind of help television ratings, right? Because then you can pitch and say, it's a top 25 battle in Boulder, or it's a number 1 versus number 2 in Columbus. Like, I understand. I get it.
But do they not think Texas and Ohio State's going to rate no matter what?
That's my argument. We're still going to watch these damn games.
You're only so like.
Do you know what I was looking for? When I was looking at the top 25, I knew Nebraska was going to receive some votes. I knew they weren't going to be a top 25 team. I was more interested to see if anyone was going to throw a bone at Cincinnati, because then I was like, okay, is there some credence to some people saying, Phil Steele, notably one of them, that Cincinnati could be a surprise team in the Big 12, right? But being a surprise team in the Big 12 is so much different than being a surprise team in the Big 10, where Nebraska could be the surprise team in one of the major conferences. But in the Big 12, if Cincinnati wins 8 games, they're probably the surprise team. If Nebraska was the surprise team in the Big 10, they don't win 8 games. Like, if it's December 5th and we're saying Nebraska was the surprise team of the Big 10 this season, they didn't go 8-4.
No.
Right?
No,
they went 10-2, or they went 11-1.
Probably, yeah. I mean, that's we were talking about just totally different things. And let's be clear here. If Nebraska was like, what was it? I don't know if it was Severe or Phil Steele, but said, hey, if Nebraska was playing in the Big 12, I'd probably pick them to win. Or Sam. It was Sam yesterday.
Yep.
If they were playing in the Big 12, I'd probably pick Nebraska to win it.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about totally different things.
Yeah.
Like, you have to grade on a curve.
But see, that's what I was looking at to see if Cincinnati was going to be in that argument, because then it's like, okay, well, these votes aren't the same.
The curve that we think we're grading on for the SEC is incorrect. That's my real point.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we have graded on a curve for the SEC for so long that we aren't even bothering to reevaluate whether the middle to bottom of that conference is still what we think it is. And I absolutely do not think it is.
TK, if there aren't numbers next to Illinois and Indiana, will the average fan watch that game the same amount of the numbers are there?
Is the average fan watching Illinois, Indiana, even if the numbers are there? That would be my argument, because
more of a blue blood argument.
But it's a brand name argument.
Amazing, Daniel. I said throw a bone for Cincinnati, not throw a bone in Cincinnati. Those are two different things.
Throw the bones against Cincinnati?
We can do that too.
No, my point is, like, national audiences aren't watching Illinois, Indiana anyway. Those could be 1-2 before you'd have to have a bump in the ratings from Illinois, Indiana. Like, if Ohio State and Michigan were unranked, it's still going to outdraw Illinois, Indiana if it's a top 10 matchup.
Yeah.
That's just the way college football works.
And also, Indiana and Illinois, if they are both ranked, they're not going to play week 1 unless they're in Ireland or the Big Ten really wants to screw the pooch again with putting their teams against each other, right? So if Illinois and Indiana had playoff implications, and we're in Big Ten season
and conference season when we're already ranking teams.
And again, like, so if we're looking at this and we're like, okay, so there's no more rankings. No one's ranking anybody until we get to the final college football playoff, right? Like, Stephen A. Smith just gets to go up and just spout nonsense for 2 hours every single week talking about which are his top 12 teams, but nobody knows until we get to the final week of rivalry week, right? That's the first polls we see. If Illinois and Indiana are both 1 loss, 2 loss, no loss, whatever, going up and playing each other, college football fans will tune into that game. They don't need the numbers to know. They're educated enough to understand that game has implications well beyond where we are in the season.
By the way, this is part of the best argument for automatic qualifiers, because we are too stupid to do it on our own. 5 plus 11, in my opinion, would be the best model if we weren't morons, right? But
because no polls, no variance, nothing.
Because the only opinion that factors into the automatic qualifiers is the last 3 spots.
Yeah.
I'm willing to let those go. That's fine. If you want to SEC bias the last 3 spots, go for it. But if you don't even need a preseason poll if you're doing automatic qualifiers, because hey, if I finish in the top 4 in the Big Ten, I'm going to the college football playoff. If I finish in the top 4 in the SEC, I'm going to the college football playoff. If I finish in the top 2 in the ACC or the Big Ten, I'm going to the college football playoff. The only teams it would really matter for are Group of 5, Notre Dame, which just joined a damn conference already, and you're at large spots. But it would take away the biggest issues I have with preseason rankings and the college football playoff committee and everything, because I do not trust them not to be stupid and look at the beginning of the season and say, hey, oh man, they beat that really good Florida team that ended up 6-6.
Yeah.
They beat that really good South Carolina team that ended up 7-5.
Yeah.
They beat that really good Ole Miss team that the wheels fell off and they went 8-4. And maybe it turns out that Joey Aguilar isn't as good as Nico I am a-leaving.
Yeah.
That's like.
And you know what? Also, it would give more credit to teams. And I know which argument you're making, that like, oh, well, these teams are better than others. But there are, and we've seen it before with Nebraska in years past. We've seen it, especially in the Pelini era, that if Nebraska beat a team that wasn't up to the standard of which Nebraska's number was at the time, right? And they didn't beat them by a certain percentage, a certain number, whatever, Nebraska was docked because of that, because they still won, but didn't win the way a number 14 team should, right?
They didn't win by enough.
That's bogus.
Yeah.
They won the game, right? And obviously not all wins are created equal. Yeah. You can't dominate every single week.
Absolutely.
And so you should be credited for winning the game, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're preseason ranked, whatever, if you're ranked at that point in the season, it doesn't matter. Just win and keep winning. And as you're saying with the automatic qualifiers, yeah, if we're going to dock teams for winning games and they're sliding down because some person from, Massachusetts is voting Nebraska as, oh, well, they didn't beat Iowa the way they should have, so I'm going to move them from 12 to 14 now. Well, that makes no sense. You shouldn't be able to dock them for that. You should just qualify whether they won or lost in those columns.
And listen, if you're playing an FCS team and you win on a last-second field goal and it's not one of the Dakotas, that probably matters, right? That probably matters. If you're playing in conference on the road and you get a win, it probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
There's not any conference, right? I'm not talking Big Ten, SEC.
If Nebraska wins on a late field goal at UCLA this year,
I'm cool.
Nebraska fans will be upset and be like, we should have won that game a different way. But
I don't even know if they would.
You know what I mean?
I honestly don't know if they would be. Like, road conference wins are precious.
But see, that's the argument. So what if UCLA ends up 17th in the conference like they've been preseason rated, and Nebraska wins on a walk-off field goal? It's still a victory. It's still a great win for Nebraska,
right? Was Illinois mad about their Purdue win last year?
Was Nebraska mad about their Purdue win last year?
Like, hey, Yeah, exactly. No, Nebraska's like, hey, we made it to a bowl.
Yeah.
Illinois is like, hey, we're 9-3. This is dope.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, road games in conference are not, like, you don't take those lightly. You take the win and you get out of town. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you do.